Before I do start this video, make sure to use my TCG player affiliate down below if you're looking for any of these singles that I talk about today. Also, this channel is sponsored by Arcane Fortress. If you're looking for the best deck boxes around, make sure to use my link down below in the description to check them out. One other way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron. There are some great benefits of being a patron to the channel, such as giveaways, deck advice, and more when you do join. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG with Assassin's Creed coming to Magic the Gathering. There are so many characters coming within that set, and it's a little overwhelming with the amount of legendary creatures that are coming within the set, but it does make sense because there is a span of what, like 13 or so games. I'm not sure how much games there were actually. I'm a casual player of Assassin's Creed. I only played 3 or 4 of them. I didn't play them all specifically, but I will say out of all the games that stood out to me, Black Flag was my favorite to play. So when I saw Edward Kenway as a commander, I absolutely got super excited because I loved playing that game so much, and I honestly spent a lot of hours within that game too. So besides that point, let's read what this card does and discuss a deck tech around it. So Edward Kenway for 2 blue, black, and a red. It's a Grixis commander with a 5/5 body. It's a human assassin pirate. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each tapped assassin, pirate, or vehicle you control. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of that player's library, then exile it face down. You may play that card as long as it remains exiled. But what's really neat about this commander, it does focus more on vehicles, and what's very good about vehicles, as you're probably aware, is the fact that you could tap all your creatures down if you wanted to. It also does focus on 3 different types: pirates, assassins, and vehicles, so that's going to be very key in this deck. I try to focus more on vehicles in this specifically because of course we could tap down our creatures, make a lot of treasure, and go ahead and go for victory there somehow. So with that said, let's now discuss the deck and talk about how we would build around it. So of course with this deck we want to fill it with a bunch of pirates and assassins. Of course we're also going to have vehicles, but that's going to be later on. But let's bring in some characters from the Assassin's Creed universe just to make it a little bit more flavorful. So let's first talk about Ezio, Blade of Vengeance, Mary Reed, and Annie Bonny, and Roshan, Hidden Magister. Ezio does give us card advantage as long as we deal combat damage to a player with an assassin. Mary and Annie do give us that card selection by drawing a card then discarding a card, and will give us a little extra advantage if we discard a island, pirate, or a vehicle by getting a treasure token. And Roshan does have that great ability, very similar to Masquerade Nexus, but in the fact that you make all your creatures into assassins whether they're in your deck or on the battlefield. That means your pirates are going to also be assassins, which will help trigger Ezio, giving us more card advantage. Another character I was absolutely excited to see was Adewale, Breaker of Chains. Honestly, he was such a badass character in the Black Flag game. So let's read what he does. So for 1 blue and a black, it does have a 4/1 body. When he ETBs, you look at the top 6 cards of your library, you put an assassin, vehicle, or a pirate into your hand, and basically whenever a vehicle deals combat damage to a player, you could return him from the graveyard to your hand and you can recast him to get that ETB again. So this is pretty sweet. It does have a high power of 4 so that you can crew almost basically anything in the deck, so this is going to be pretty useful ability overall. So now that I've talked about some characters from the games, I did want to focus on cards from Magic the Gathering. For example, Ramirez, Breaches, and Zhalfir Singer is going to be excellent in the deck. Ramirez does have an ETB of you lose 2 life, but you do create 2 treasure tokens, so I feel like that's going to outweigh the negative. Also, whenever one or more pirates you control deal combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, so this could be card advantage for us the more pirates we do swing in with. Speaking of swinging in with pirates, Breaches is going to be excellent in this deck because whenever a pirate you control attacks, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You create a treasure token, target creature can't block this turn, or exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. So this will ramp you ahead with that treasure token. It also can make sure a creature gets in for damage, and also getting card advantage by exiling the top card of your library isn't too shabby. Also, I do think Zhalfir Singer is going to be incredible for a deck because it does have Convoke, and when it does enter the battlefield, put a flying counter for each creature convoked this way. This acts as a double benefit for us convoking our creatures because of course with our commander we want to make sure each of our creatures are tapped so that we can get treasure tokens. We'll get that additional bonus of giving flying counters to those creatures that would convoke that turn. So giving flying to our assassins and pirates is going to be extra deadly in the deck. So with one of the more recent sets, Outlaws of Thunder Junction gave us that outlaw type. So outlaws are pirates and assassins, so that works perfectly with Double Down, Back in Town, and Dead Before Sunrise. So with Double Down, whenever you cast an outlaw spell, copy that spell. So we're going to be copying our assassin and pirate spells. Back in Town is going to resurrect our outlaws such as our pirates and our assassins from the graveyard to the battlefield depending on how much we pay into the X, because we want to tap our creatures on the battlefield like pirates, vehicles, and assassins. Dead Before Sunrise is going to be a great option for us, mainly because it acts as creature removal on the battlefield. We could tap our creatures on the battlefield to deal damage to an opponent's creature. Also, yeah, Roaming Throne is going going to be a good card in the deck. I don't need to go too much into this. Doubling the treasure tokens we make with our tapped creatures with our commander's ability, yeah, it's good. So we have our crew of assassins and pirates. What kind of ships are we going to crew them with? If we are going for a more thematic choice with Assassin's Creed, Jackdaw is going to be an excellent choice. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each artifact you control, and it does have a crew 3 with a 4/4 body. So if you don't know from Black Flag, this is Edward's ship. So of course this is going to heavily synergize with Edward's ability. Because we are making so much treasure tokens and also exiling the top card of your opponent's library, it'll be easy for us to just discard a hand and draw cards for each artifact on the battlefield, including our treasure tokens we make off our commander, which could be a ridiculous amount. So this will easily provide us so much card advantage in the deck. Other options I did want to highlight that are not from the Assassin's Creed universe but are from Ixalan is the Indomitable and the Belligerent. The Indomitable is basically a coastal piracy effect. Whenever creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. It has crew 3 and trample with a 6/6 body, which is quite huge. And as long as you have 3 pirates or vehicles that are tapped on your battlefield, you can cast it from your graveyard. Which obviously in the game plan, that's exactly what we're wanting to do. We want to make sure that we tap our pirates, so this is just an easy include. The Belligerent on attack will create us a treasure token, and essentially it has a future sight ability for lands and casting spells from the top of your library. So this is just another easy addition you could throw into the deck and it'll do some work. Other options I did want to highlight from Ixalan is Subterranean Schooner and Magmatic Galleon. Each of these are pretty powerful. Subterranean Schooner, just for 1 and a blue, whenever it attacks, target creature that crewed it this turn explores, so it can buff up one of our creatures when we tap it. Plus it does have a pretty light crew cost of 1. And what I love about Magmatic Galleon is the fact that it does have an effect, even though you don't need to necessarily crew with it. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target creature an opponent controls. Also, this can give us some extra treasure if we deal some non-combat damage that is in excess to one of our opponent's creatures. Besides that ETB, there's not a lot of situations where we might deal excess non-combat damage to an opponent's creature, but there are cards in the deck that we can actually take advantage of that ability with. I really wanted to focus on ships, but of course there are other options that are vehicles like Imposter Mech. Sorry, no, this is not one of your classic boat ships like the previous ones that I mentioned, but this is just a great clone option in the deck. It's a pretty decent option. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except it's a vehicle artifact with crew 3 and loses all other card types. So this can be pretty powerful depending on what kind of creatures our opponents control, so it can really scale with the game. But let's move on to the next subject. Let's talk about the win cons of the deck. There's so many great options in this. I didn't necessarily add in infinite combos, but I thought synergy is going to be really key in this deck, like broadside bombardiers. I think in a way this can be a great win con because it does have menace and haste with a 2/2 body. It does have that boast ability, sacrifice another creature or artifact. It deals damage equal to 2 plus the sacrifice permanent's mana value to any target. This does have a little bit of evasion with menace, and plus you could use this ability right away because you could swing in with that haste ability, boast right away, and sacrifice another creature or artifact, and then go ahead and blow up somebody's face. Plus we have plenty of treasure on the battlefield that we could take advantage of to basically blow up a lot of different things on the battlefield too. I know this is not necessarily a I win the game button, but this is just going to generate you value each time you go into combat. You swing in, sacrifice a creature or an artifact, and deal a bunch of damage either to your opponent's face or any other target. Because we are an aggressive strategy, why not get some extra combats like Port Razor? Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. If Port Razor can connect with each of your opponents, you could essentially get 2 extra combat phases. And again, because we are in a pretty aggressive strategy, there's a lot of different ways where we could just hit somebody for a bunch of damage. So I feel like Port Razor, getting those extra combats in, and also because it's a pirate itself, it's going to synergize with our commander. However, because we do have a lot of assassins in this deck, Ramsay's Assassin Lord is kind of a no-brainer if you want to go for a straight win con. It does have Death Touch, and other assassins you control get +1/+1, does have a 4/4 body. Whenever a player loses a game, if they were attacked this turn by an assassin you control, you win the game. This is pretty much the only I win the game card in the deck. This is going to be just an auto-include in all your Assassin's Creed decks by far. Also, there is going to be an Assassin's Creed Universes Beyond art with Ramsay's Assassin Lord, kind of like the Godzilla treatment, so I wouldn't spec on this too hard, but it's going to be a great addition and can be a great win con on the deck, especially because we are in that aggressive strategy of attacking with our assassins, attacking with our vehicles, all sorts of different ways just to get treasure and semi-card advantage off our opponent's library. So with that said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Edward Kenway. This is easily one of my favorite commanders of the entire set, not only because I love Black Flag, but this is actually pretty strong and it focuses on vehicles, so I feel like this is a great flavorful way of showcasing Edward Kenway. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this commander. Let me know down below, how would you build around him? What kind of cards would you suggest putting in this deck? So make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. With that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.